Hello, biology. The purpose of this video is to give students who are absent an opportunity to get the missing notes. Also to give students who do these by hand an opportunity to get all of the missing notes, assuming I was going too fast in class. Also, it's very possible on Friday we will not have finished these notes. Therefore, you'll need to watch the end of the video to finish up the rest of those. Okay, so section 17-4 talks about different elements of evolution on a large scale, or macro evolution. We are going to abbreviate that as capital M, capital E. So large scale evolutionary patterns, processes that take long periods of time. Also, please don't forget we're starting our numbering at number 34. For those of you that are doing your notes in a Google Doc, we're going to 51, which means you'll need about 18 rows, 2 columns. For those of you that are doing them by hand, just draw a line down the center of your page, please. And of course, I will be going a lot faster than I do in class, because you can pause the video and rewind if I am going too fast. All right, here we go. So the 6 patterns, we got extinction, adaptive radiation, convergent evolution, coevolution, punctuated equilibrium, and also changes in developmental genes. All right, moving ahead. That's how you know that we're going to the next slide, is I'm going to point at you. All right, extinction. We've talked about this before. More than 99% of all species that have ever lived on this planet are extinct, which means that the biodiversity we have today represents less than 1% of all of the living things on this planet, back to when the first life forms evolved. One cause of mass extinction? No, there are lots of different factors that go into mass extinctions. The current one, I think most people would agree, is, largely human caused. Primarily habitat destruction is causing the mass extinction currently. Mass extinctions affect the history of life, absolutely. But every time you remove an organism, that does provide an ecological opportunity for the survivors, new habitats possibly, less competition. So mass extinctions have also resulted in bursts of evolution of organisms fulfilling new habitat requirements. Can certainly lead to natural selection and certain adaptations being favored based on where those organisms fit within that environment. So mass extinctions can be opportunities for others. All right, moving ahead. We're going to abbreviate adaptive radiation. Perfect example of this is the finches. So one species or group evolves into several different forms that live in different ways. So the idea is that one species of finch, the common ground finch from South America, arrived on the Galapagos Islands. And the process of speciation, geographic isolation, reproductive isolation, ecological competition occurred many, 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 many times, leading to the 13 distinct species of finches now on the Galapagos. Adaptive radiation in mammals? Yeah, absolutely. So when the dinosaurs disappeared as a result of the what we think was an asteroid, a large asteroid impact, that allowed for mammals really to evolve and to fit into different environments, because we didn't have these things running around eating us all the time. All right, moving ahead. All right, so we think that this is how the mammals evolved into different species. So we had an ancestral mammal, and we've branched off a couple times. We've got camels, and the cetaceans are dolphins, and rhinos, and anteaters, and I have no idea what that thing, probably a mole or a vole. We got a manatee and elephants, so distinctly different organisms, but all mammals. And the idea is that we have branched off of this common ancestor, and the further back we branched off, the more time we've had to evolve and the more differences we can expect in these organisms. Okay, please use this as an opportunity to practice with your notes. Evolutionary patterns and processes that occur over a long period of time describes what? Take a look back at number 34. Yeah, that's macroevolution. Good. 3 of the 6 topics or categories of macroevolution. Take a look back at number 35. Yeah, so we got extinction, adaptive radiation, coevolution, convergent evolution, punctuated equilibrium, changes in developmental genes. Yeah, that's it. Okay, the process by which a single species evolves into several different forms. What do we call that? Let me take a look at number 30, 40, 39 and 40. Yeah, that is adaptive radiation. Very nice. Okay, so adaptive radiation and convergent evolution. Okay, so adaptive radiation, to radiate means to move out or away from. Okay, and adaptive, we're talking about changes in characteristics, changes in adaptations, certain adaptations that are favorable, giving those organisms an advantage and being passed along. So adaptive radiation is starting similar and getting more and more different. Convergent evolution is the opposite of that. So that's unlike different organisms that live in a similar environment, because certain characteristics in that similar environment cause certain adaptations to be favored. Those are different organisms becoming more and more and more alike because the characteristics they have that give them an advantage in that environment are similar among the different groups of organisms. So adaptive radiation starting similar, getting more and more different. Convergent evolution, organisms that are very, very different, getting more and more and more similar based on the environments that they live in. Convergent evolution definition. Unrelated organisms come to resemble one another. Examples. Convergent evolution resulted in sharks, which are fish, dolphins, which are mammals, seals, which are mammals, and penguins, which are birds. So these are very different organisms within the animal kingdom that have a lot of commonalities because they live in the water. Okay, and there are certain characteristics like a streamlined body, fins, or I guess you would call them wings if we're talking about a penguin, that allow them to steer, the ability to hold your breath for long periods of time, a layer of fat to help keep you insulated. All of those are characteristics that make them successful in the ocean, especially the cold ocean. So unlike organisms, being selected by nature as having advantages and becoming more and more and more and more similar. Okay, moving ahead. All right, an analogous structure. So these are structures that look and function similarly, but are made up of parts that don't share a common evolutionary history, or they don't share a common ancestor. So remember, a homologous structure is a structure that is very, very similar. An analogous structure is some that is not similar in origin, but it is similar in function. An example would be a dolphin's fluke and a fish's tail fin. So they both function similarly for the organism, but the bone structure in these two different body parts does not have a lot of similarities, indicating that maybe this came from a common ancestor. So it's different from that in terms of homologous structures. Co means together. So this is a process where species evolve in response to changes in one another over time. Great example of this that's provided for in the textbook is the shape of a hummingbird's beak and the actual shape of the flower that they insert that beak into to get nectar and sugar. That if the structure of the flower is changing over time, that might lead to changes in the actual structure of the hummingbird's beak over time, resulting in the changes that are coming from the flower. And again, we're not talking Lamarck. We're not talking like, oh my goodness, that flower is shaped a little bit differently. I need my beak to be shaped a little bit differently. Remember, variation within the species. Okay, variation within the species is going to favor organisms who have a beak shape similar to the new shape of a flower, and then those organisms are going to survive more, and then they're going to pass on those characteristics to their offspring. And over time, the old beak shape, because the flower shape has changed, that old beak shape isn't going to be able to get as much food. Those organisms are going to die, and then over time, the new beak shape with the new flower shape is going to be the only one found in that population. So it's not Lamarck saying, I need something right now. It's just variation within that population, allowing organisms to have an advantage and other organisms to not have an advantage. All right, moving ahead. Let's just do the top question. The process where unrelated organisms come to resemble one another over time. What do we call that? And if you're not sure, you might want to take a look back at number 4142. Yeah, so we're talking about convergent evolution. Example of an analogous structure due to convergent evolution in similar environments. Take a look back at number 43. Yeah, so we got those 4 different animals. We got the shark, we got the seal, we got the dolphin, and we got the penguin. 3 different types of animals, 4 different types of organisms, but they all have similar characteristics in common because they live in the ocean or the cold ocean. So they're going to have some things in common with one another. All right, the process by which 2 species evolve in response to changes in each other over time. What term is that? You might want to take a look at number 46. Yeah, so that is coevolution, evolving together. That's what the Latin root co means, together. Okay, all right, so gradualism. Darwin thought that evolution took a real long time and it was really slow and steady. And you can see that exemplified by his tree of life. Okay, the time is represented from bottom to top. So you've got these slow changes in species over long periods of time. Okay, the flip side of that, the opposite of that. So notice there's no change because the change is represented by movement to the left or the right. There's no change in this species, but all of a sudden there's rapid change, and then no change, then rapid change, and no change, then rapid change, then no change, then rapid change. So gradualism is slow and steady changes. Okay, change is always taking place. Punctuated equilibrium, on the other hand, is no evolutionary change and then rapid change, and then no evolutionary change and then rapid change. And we'll get into the types of things that cause punctuated equilibrium in just a moment. All right, moving ahead. It's a punctuated equilibrium. Long stable periods are interrupted by brief periods of more rapid evolution. This could be like catastrophes in environments like hurricanes or flooding, basically where certain organisms get wiped out. Even mass extinction events could lead to this. So you're not going to have a whole lot of change, but then all of a sudden you have all these habitats that open up, and then organisms are going to scramble to fit into these different niches, and that's going to allow them to evolve by natural selection, choosing the characteristics that are successful and choosing the ones that are not. So catastrophes in the environment can lead to this type of thing. Honestly, just habitat destruction or habitat modification in general can lead to punctuated equilibrium as well. All right, moving ahead. I said, does evolution happen at the same rate? No, it does not. It depends on a lot of different things. All right, so why does it happen at different rates? So here's an example of why. So genes for growth and differentiation, which have like an on-off switch, they're only active at certain times. So if these genes are employed or used during embryological development, you could get changes in body shape and size just from the genes that are already in your DNA. There are also these genes called control genes, and these control genes affect other genes. So these control genes, if they're activated during certain times of development, can lead to really large-scale changes in adult animals. All right, moving ahead. All right, so evolution of wings, this is an example. So small changes in the timing of cell differentiation and gene expression can make the difference between long legs and short ones, or really short paired wings, or one really large pair of wings, or two medium-sized pairs of wings. So you can see that the body structure of these three organisms is very, very similar. But you can see a distinct difference in the size and shape of these wings. And that can happen in a single generation of organisms. All right, moving ahead. Okay, slow and steady biological change. What do we call that? Take a look back at number 47 if you're not sure. Yeah, that is gradualism. Good. Long periods of gradualism interrupted by brief periods of rapid evolutionary change. What do we call that? Take a look at number 48 if you can't remember. Yeah, that is punctuated equilibrium. All right, let's see if we can do some matching here. Number 1, take a look back at number 48. Yeah, so number one is going to be C, stable, then rapid evolutionary change. Number two, gradualism. Yeah, so that's going to be E, slow, steady evolution. Co-evolution. Yeah, the clue is together because that's what co means. So that's going to be A, connected organisms evolving together. Number four, convergent evolution. Yes, number four is going to be B, similar environments causing unrelated organisms to be more alike. And number five, adaptive radiation. Of course, by process of elimination, we could get to D, but the definition for adaptive radiation is a single species evolving into many different species. Okay, Darwin's species of finches were very similar but different in beak size and feeding habits. This is an example of convergent evolution, coevolution, adaptive radiation, and stabilizing selection. Yeah, the finches are a perfect example of adaptive radiation. Slow and steady change in a particular line of descent. What do we call that? Yeah, that is gradualism. Some evidence suggests that species do not change much over long periods of time and then undergo relatively short periods of rapid speciation. This kind of change is called what? Yeah, so real steady and then rapid, and then real steady and then rapid, and then real steady and then rapid. That is punctuated equilibrium. Fossil evidence shows that mass extinctions ended the existence of many species in a short period of time, occurred mainly when the dinosaurs disappeared, require an asteroid strike to occur, or caused convergent evolution among animals. Only one of those up there is true. And mass extinction ended the existence of lots of species in a short period of time. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the notes. Please make sure to get these turned in on time, and we will see you either in class or in the Zoom.